Welcome back to another episode of Green Squad Chats. Today, we are going to tackle the concept of breaking out of your comfort zone because that's where the growth is. If you have big goals, if you have this grand vision of where you want to end up, eventually you're going to have to break out of your comfort zone because the challenges, overcoming them, facing them, taking action, failing, learning from it, that's where the growth happens. And that's how you're going to get closer to your goals. So to kick us off, any of you got any good stories or anything you want to share?
I feel like everybody in this room has been forced to be uncomfortable, whether physically, mentally, taking risk, just due to the military background. I'm really fascinated though. Everybody here has, decades of experience in the military. I'm really curious, like what's something hard or something really uncomfortable you've had to do in the military that on the backside of it, you were so grateful that you did it or you felt really accomplished that after you did it. I mean, being pilots and you guys do a lot of high risk stuff, or Travis is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu master. So I know everything they do looks uncomfortable to me. What's the hardest thing you've done that you felt really uncomfortable? I feel like everybody's trying to think about statute of limitations right now. Like, I did that one thing in the helicopter. Can I say that yet?
I think a lot of the uncomfortable, so before we started recording, I was thinking much more along the lines of business, real estate, things outside work or outside the Navy. I'm retired now, so it's not work anymore. When I think about the things that made me uncomfortable and that contributed to growth, I don't actually think about flying, despite that being kind of the primary, it's the obvious answer. And yes, I've been uncomfortable in a helicopter more times than I can count. And, I'm sure that contributed to my growth as a person, as an officer, as an aviator. However, I think the things that I would point to, Adam, are more about leadership, priorities. And I mean, when I was in XO, I think I experienced tremendous growth, and it was super uncomfortable as I learned to swim the entire length of the pool, right? So when you're thrown in, at least in aviation unit in the Navy, when you're thrust into the role of XOCO, you have some limits, left and right limits, and a lot of, a good boss at the next level is going to tell you, stay in your lane and use all of your lane, right? Go all the way to the left and right limits, use the whole court, use the whole field. And to actually do that, it's uncomfortable.
I would love to hear Travis's perspective on, getting out of your comfort zone, because Travis, you have such a good even keel mindset. And I know what you guys do in the BJJ world. Like I've never met somebody who's as practiced as you, who doesn't have a really pragmatic, calm demeanor, like just willing to take hard things head on and get uncomfortable. And that obviously reverberates throughout your entire life. You do uncomfortable things. So could you talk a little bit about BJJ and how that has helped you in other parts of your life when it comes to getting comfortable or being uncomfortable and getting out of your comfort zone?
Training jiu-jitsu makes you, because you manufacture struggle every time that you roll, and it's two opposing wills going at it. And when you're stuck in somebody's attempted submission, when you first start out as a white belt, you freak out and flail and spaz. And as you get more experience on the mat, as you get put in that position or positions over and over again, you learn how to take the emotion out of it. You learn to separate the goal of getting out of that situation from the fear of being in it or sustained in it. And, as I was recovering through, when I was diagnosed with cancer and going through that, like that mindset helped me. Like, what's the goal? My goal is to get over cancer and go back to the fleet, not deal with cancer and then get out of the Marine Corps. It was beat cancer and go back to the fleet. And then, taking that mindset and just taking the emotion, pushing the emotion to the side and staying fixed on the goal of getting back. When we lost all of our real estate in the recession, I wish I had the mindset now that when we went through that, because it would have really helped us focus and not wake up each day thinking that you're a failure, thinking that, man, our life is falling apart. And again, being a white belt, when we went through that, the entire emotional response instead of the logical process, okay, this is my problem. How am I dealing with it? And, it's kind of interesting that we talk about this because I'm listening to the book called Mindset, which is a great book about how fixed mindset people are focused on only the success and how they're only focused on the here and now and the perception other people have of them. Where the growth mindset is like, hey, I can fail forward. I can progress. I'm not a failure, even though I failed at this. And so, it's how you approach it. How detached can you be in the situation to analyze it and see where you can take action at within while you're going through that, instead of just living in the emotion of, I shared it with my kids, right? Because when we left Japan, my diagnosis kicking in, going to start treatment at Wounded Warrior Battalion. The girls are dealing with it. And I'm like, hey, if you want to scream in your pillow, if you want to punch my arm, like however you got to deal with it, but like, don't be afraid to just roll around in it like a big ball of jelly or a big thing of muck, right? Like just stick it in all your ears and just let it be a part of the thing, but set yourself a set amount of time that you're going to do that, wash yourself off and then get going. And I think that and that's a growth mindset, right? Like recognize you're in it, recognize it sucks, respect that you're in it and it sucks, and then move out when you've given yourself that set time to do it.
Yeah, it seems like, you've taken on a lot of big things in your life, from cancer to, your progression through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, through the '08 crash. And I think what we see most is like people get stuck and they're looking forward and they say, I want to go here, but that's like super scary. The path to get there is uncertain. And it will certainly be uncomfortable. I think I'm just going to stay here because I'm comfortable. Like you could have easily wallowed in, I guess like I can't be a Marine anymore. My life is going to change, completely. And I don't want to do anything because of this cancer diagnosis. But you didn't. You looked at the goal and you said, I want to continue to be a Marine. It was probably incredibly uncomfortable for like physically, emotionally, energy wise. Like I remember when your energy was super low and you were kind of going through some of that stuff towards the tail end and you were getting the treatments and all that. And but you got uncomfortable and you did it anyways. And now you're on the back end. And the beauty of it is because you were willing to come out of your comfort zone, you didn't clam up. Now you're still a Marine. You're a thriving Marine. You're continuing your career. And the same goes for real estate. You crashed in '08, crashed and burned with everybody else, but now you're back. You're doing it again. You're willing to get uncomfortable once again to really move forward on your goals. I think that's incredibly, incredibly powerful.
It's funny that you kind of mentioned that because, even with Travis's thing, if we all thought without hesitation that he would be back fully and everything that he wanted to do, he would accomplish. And so it seems like it's more, we're uncomfortable in our own mind. It's only inside when everybody else around us that knows us, it's like, well, you're definitely going to do that, right? The conversation we were having with Brandon today, well, of course you're going to be a good boss and be a good steward of somebody's career. Like, we all see it. But it's the uncomfortableness is just within ourselves. It's not, nobody else thinks that we can't do it. We're the only ones that think we can't do it.
Yeah, it's what Travis said. The book Travis was alluding to, the book called it's called Mindset, right? No, that's Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, right?
That's it. Mindset. That's what he's talking about.
Yeah, it talks about fix and growth mindsets, and in order to have growth, you do have to move out of your comfort zone into fear. You're going to learn and iterate. You're going to fail at times. You're not going to do everything right, but on the back end of that, you get a reward, right? You get the experience that you went through, and maybe it results in net worth or dollars or just straight up fulfillment which is what we talked about this morning on our call of like what fulfills us. It's not always about money. And most of the time, it's actually not about money. Money is a byproduct of growth, but it's for at least for a lot of us, I just knowing you guys so intimately, it's about impact and what we're doing for others. I have a really interesting, real quick, Trav. I can remember buying one of the first rentals. I had found Dave Ramsey. This wasn't even that long ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Like started to get my financial health in order, got rid of all my debt, had like $5,000 in the bank. And I'm starting the like real estate journey. And I remember going on Facebook and seeing somebody post that they'd gotten an Amex loan for $25,000, but they were able to use SCRA, which is like this military thing that brings down your interest rates. And they got it for 0%. And I was learning and I was like, 0% money, that's free money. I need to do that. But I'm like super nervous and scared. I don't want a $25,000 loan. I just came out of this whole like Dave Ramsey thing. Don't get debt. That's bad. But all my real estate, all this new real estate information is like, you have to get leverage to get velocity. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like what happens if I take this $25,000 loan and the SCRA thing doesn't work? Now I've got a loan with an interest rate that doesn't really make sense, even if I'm buying a real estate asset with this money. And I went through kind of a worst case scenario drill. Like what's the worst thing that happens? If I take the loan and it doesn't work, I just give the money back. It seemed far less uncomfortable. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable, but I felt like I had outs and plays and contingencies. And I did that and bought a house that ended up cash flowing like a net $400 or $500 a month for 2 or 3 years, probably 3 years. And then I sold it and made like 90,000, which was the recapture of about 30 grand of capital and 60 grand of profit. It was crazy. Like I had to get really uncomfortable to do that. I didn't feel like I knew enough. I didn't feel like I had enough experience. I was really nervous about the debt, even though, I mean, in hindsight, it's 25 grand and I could have literally just gave it right back. No prepayment. And that was one of the first turnkeys I bought, like on a $25,000 Amex loan that I ended up getting for 0%, but I was super nervous about it. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah, I remember. And what you're describing is it's actually an actionable way that we can overcome some of the fears we have of embracing discomfort. It is figuring out really a safe way to test it. And what you said was, hey, what's the worst that's going to happen? If I do this, things fall through. What's the worst that could happen? And that's a way to create safe tests, safe ways to test these beliefs you have, these fears, these assumptions that you're making that might or might not be true. A lot of times not true. But you don't know until you actually take the action. And so creating a safe way to move forward, as long as you're moving forward, creating a safe way, something small at first as you're learning, and then you either fail or succeed and you take those lessons and then you reincorporate them, right? To move on to the next uncomfortable thing.
Right. And what is that, right? You talked about the experience, but that's wisdom. We gain wisdom as we go through experiences. And the most wisdom is gained when we fail forward. And, Marty, to your point, the imposter syndrome, I think, that's what we call it, imposter syndrome. We are the only ones that create it. I had this conversation. I was in Yuma inspecting a unit as my role in the Marine Corps. And we were talking about how comparison is the killer of joy, right? And I said, I was talking to these guys and they don't invest. They don't do anything. They're just Marines. They're just collecting a paycheck, right? I said, I've been in rooms where if I'm the smartest dude in the room, I need to find a new room. And they're like, oh, that's interesting. And I said, yeah. I said, you need to go in a room where people are a couple rungs above you on the success ladder. I said, and what's really cool is that if you're doing something really neat, everybody who's below you are the only people that give you crap. The only people that like, oh, you suck, or, they're going to say negative things. Everybody above you is like, yeah, man, get it. Keep going. You're never going to hear anybody above you talk trash to you for your hustle, ever. But everybody below you that is in their own head, jealous, or, again, comparison is the killer of joy. They're trying to kill your joy because they don't have any of what you're doing. And jealousy, insecurity, imposter, like all those things are playing into that. So don't ever let, for our couple listeners, don't ever think that what you're doing, look at who's going to be talking crap about you for what you're doing, and look who's cheering you on, and then lean towards the people that are cheering you on.
I mean, that's such a great point, Travis. Getting in a room with people who will tell you when you're playing safe or being comfortable, who will encourage you, who will take what you told, what you said your goals were, and who you say you are, and challenge you to be that person and take the next step. Because the hardest step is the next step, right? So getting in the right room and being around those people, and then drowning out the noise of the others who, you know, they're just at a different part of their journey. They can't really wrap their mind around what you're trying to do. And honestly, we're all on our own journey. We say success. We typically, it's so deeply tied to money because that's the scoreboard. We didn't make the scoreboard. That's just the scoreboard. Culturally, the United States, that's the scoreboard is money. But honestly, it's what the money does. It allows you to make certain impacts. It allows you to bring other people along on the journey with you and make meaningful changes for your own family and the family of others. And a lot of it has to do with the room you're in. It really does, because that opens your mind. It gives you the courage to take the next step. It gives you the courage to go, yeah, they're right. That's not as, it's probably going to be a little bit hard, but I'm going to do it anyways. And man, the amount of times that I just did something anyways, even though I knew it was going to be hard, either in the military or in business, like the struggle, man, the power is in the struggle.
Again, another actionable way to bring this to happen, right? To actually make yourself do this. You said, make sure you're in the right room. I mean, we have an example from this morning, our Green Squad chat, where I was talking through an issue. I was talking about the players, you know, in my blueprint that I know that would be very affected if I made this decision. And I get done reflecting on it and talking about it. And you, Adam, you're just like, hey, dude, just do it. Like, take action, because what you're saying, sure, it makes sense. But what you're saying is actually you're allowing yourself to be held back because it's going to be a little uncomfortable. And you pointed that out to me. And getting in the right room. it is our weekly calls that we've committed to for over 4 years now. That's the room, right? That's where a group of growth minded individuals. We have different interests, different business interests, different ways we like to invest in real estate or other things. But the common element we share is the mindset, and helping to hold each other accountable to our growth goals, to what we want to do, right? Like, not being the bad guy or the parent figure, not holding accountable like I think so many of us think of it, but holding us accountable to what we actually want to accomplish, what we say that we're trying to do. Well, we listen to each other, and then we help hold each other accountable to actually doing those things that we want to do. So powerful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Marty, you had a point there?
Yeah, I was just going to bring up, there's other ways that you can put yourself in uncomfortable positions, physically. You could do things that, you don't want to do, and that, that'll help grow that mindset. I was listening to, I think it was Andrew Huberman, and there's like scientific studies that where, there's a part of the brain that is basically willpower. And the more times that you test that and go do things that you don't want to do, the bigger that part of your brain gets. And the bigger that part of your brain gets, the more willpower that you will have to get through difficult situations and stuff. So there's even, scientific proof from the nerds that, are backing up what we're saying.
Yeah, those are like the nerds being like your friends in the Air Force, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Just checking, making sure we're all on the same page here. What's really interesting is we're really talking about, getting out of your comfort zone, being uncomfortable to grow, and being uncomfortable oftentimes. I mean, almost every time. I can't think of a time where it's not associated with a challenge. Like, getting uncomfortable is synonymous with going through a challenge, overcoming an obstacle, doing something difficult. To Marty's point of Huberman, who's known for Wim Hof and the hot cold therapy stuff, getting in cold water, 35 degree water, and staying in there for, 3-5 minutes. that's super uncomfortable. Getting on the mats and doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Travis will not only be uncomfortable, it'll probably hurt a little bit. So, like I will probably roll. I'm not a BJJ guy, but when Travis and I are together, when we do our Green Squad meetup, I'll probably roll with Travis because I know I can learn something from him in that experience. And it will probably be a little bit painful, I'm sure. It'll be good for us. But yeah, it's often associated with difficulty, challenge, obstacles. And we know being in the military, on the other side of that difficulty, that challenge, that obstacle is serious fulfillment. Like, why do so many people join the military? It's like hard. You do hard things. There's a certain degree of passion or purpose or impact that you have, and you're willing to go endure the hard things that the military has to offer. And most people come out the other side a better person, which, I think all services across the military say, like, if we get you for 4 years, we want to give you back to society a much better person. And I think for that reason, because we do hard things on a regular basis, it makes for better citizens, better people, more resilient people who are willing to go endure something that's a little bit outside of their comfort zone.
Yeah, 100%. Marty talks about, there's a book called The Comfort Crisis, and also The Obstacle's Way are two great books to kind of reinforce or at least validate what we're talking about. Comfort Crisis and The Obstacle is the Way, two great books that help, I find it very interesting that so many people in today's society want to bash on the success of others when we all have the same playbook. Every single one of us in the world actually has the same playbook. And especially in America, like, you cannot pay taxes on certain ways because you know the playbook. You can buy real estate a certain way because you know the playbook. You can invest in different things, whether it's a physical asset or yourself, because you have the playbook. Everybody has it. It's just the fact that you have to exert yourself to play the playbook.
Yeah. Get uncomfortable. I think what's really important is people listen to these podcasts and podcasts like it, or read books, or you go down this rabbit hole. You get lost in this financial independent, retire early, or this real estate niche, or just kind of this personal development niche. And the commonality across all of it is having a set of goals, a place you want to be, a place you want your family to be, your financials to be, your faith to be, whatever it may be. And that is usually way out in front of you. And to get there, for most, like, some people do reach that. Some people do hit those milestones and then continue to move, or they hit those milestones and they're accomplished to where they want to be. But a lot of people don't. And I think the biggest obstacle to getting to the goals most people are saying they want to do, who are in this kind of space, this personal development space, is being uncomfortable. Like, you say you want something, but at your core, you might not actually want it because you're not willing to be uncomfortable and do what it takes to get to that position. This is great. Get uncomfortable. If you want to be uncomfortable, I wouldn't join the Air Force. I would look at maybe, the Navy, the Marines, maybe the Army.
Hey, sometimes our Wi-Fi doesn't work, okay? And that's very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't have suites at this hotel. All they have is the dual queen bed rooms for the peasants.
Yeah,
I know.
I was going to say it's the worst when you have to actually room with somebody else in your hotel room and share the Wi-Fi.
Oh my gosh. War is hell, boys. You are welcome for your freedom.
We appreciate you, Marty.
So
take us home, Brandon.
Great episode today. At least I think, I'm biased. But the crux of it is, hey, if you want to grow, if you have big goals and you want to get after them, you're going to have to face challenges and do things that are outside of your comfort zone. And you'll never have arrived. Even when you've made that a habit, right? When you have actually started embracing it, you will still find yourself in situations where you'll be holding back because you're afraid of the discomfort. You don't know what's going to happen when you face that challenge. And, if you want to grow and reach those goals, you're going to have to face it. You're going to have to get uncomfortable. So thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review. Tell us how we can do this better. And we'll see you next time on Green Squad Chats.